This is Blade. She's a 26-foot single-masted steel yacht. The man who built her is in New Zealand's maximum security prison at Paramarimu. He was convicted of murder in 1999 after the disappearance of 2 young people whose bodies have never been found. The case against this man was that he killed them and that he killed them on Blade. I think that's wrong. This is Ferno Lodge in the Marlborough Sounds at the top of the South Island. It's a magnet for the whole region's young people every New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve 2002. It's a little different from New Year's Eve 1997. That's the night that Ben and Olivia went missing from the party.
May it please Your Honour?
The story was told in the High Court a year and a half later.
On the 2nd of January 1998, in the mid-afternoon, Gerald Hope reported to the Blenheim police that his daughter, Olivia Hope, 17 years old, was missing.
Olivia Hope and Ben Smart had left the party together in the early hours of New Year's Day. They'd gone back to the yacht Olivia had come on, the Tamarack. But they found that the Tamarack was overcrowded, and so they left again on a water taxi in search of a place to sleep.
Olivia was pretty concerned about where they're going to spend the night, so she hit me up about accommodation. I said to her, right, Ferno Lodge holds between 92 and 96. This New Year's Eve, we're full up, we have no berths. And this mystery man that's sitting over to my right, he says, oh, there's a spare berth on my boat. You can come, pointing to Olivia, but he can't, pointing to Ben. Everyone just took it as piss talk, just over the top type of thing. And then we got to the boat.
This is not the yacht that Guy Wallace says the mystery man directed him to. But it's the same sort of boat and the same size. A 40-foot ocean-going 2-masted yacht. It's a ketch.
Olivia got off first, Ben got off after her, and then the mystery man got up and he more or less went past them and into the cockpit. I got this feeling, it's just like shiver up the spine thing. And I said to Olivia and Ben, you sure you're all right with us? And they just went, yeah, Happy New Year. And that was the last anyone ever seen of them.
3 days later, a police inquiry was underway. And on January the 6th, an experienced inquiry team, led by Detective Inspector Rob Pope, arrived from out of town to pick up the threads. It had been a typical New Year's Eve party, and the police inquiry had to sort out the stories of hundreds of mostly young people, many of whom had been out of it that night. But the very day the police team arrived from out of town, 2 young people went to the police and gave statements that pointed the inquiry in a direction from which it never wavered.
It could be anywhere between 10:30 and 11 p.m. I know it was before New Year's Eve that we were speaking to this guy.
He said his name was Scott. He didn't give a last name.
I heard him tell Dwayne that he had been in prison. He said he'd been out for about 3 years.
The only other thing I can remember was that he said he'd been cruising around the Sounds area for some time, and that he was on his boat, on his own.
By January the 6th, the police were aware that there had been at the party a man who had a prison record and had been alone on his boat. His name was Scott. The following day, a man named Scott gave a statement too.
On the evening of the 7th of January 1998, Scott Watson called in at the Picton police station.
Scott Watson gave a brief statement saying that he'd been at Ferno that night. He had partied on the boat next door and then gone ashore at about 9:30.
New Year's Eve. Stayed on shore till about 2 a.m.
The following day, the police prepared a warrant to seize and search Watson's boat. Four days later, they acted on the warrant. Soon afterwards, they would plant electronic bugs in the homes and on the telephones of Watson's family and friends. they would seize his passport and secretly enlist his girlfriend to inform on him. During all of this, they would deny that Scott Watson was even a suspect. At his trial, a year and a half later, the evidence of key eyewitnesses was rejected. Everyday events capable of innocent explanation were interpreted as evidence of guilt. Statements which had pointed away from Watson commonly changed into evidence that pointed towards him. When Watson was finally convicted of murder, it was after a trial that took a surprise turn, just days before the jury retired. 2 words by Watson himself allowed that surprise turn to occur. Without them, I believe he could only have been acquitted. For Scott Watson to be the killer, this had to be the killer's boat, the scene of the crime. But as you will see, if the key witnesses had been asked in court whether the man in front of them was the killer, the mystery man, they would have said no. And as for this being the killer's boat, the key witnesses did say no. There were more than 100 yachts and small boats moored off Ferno Lodge that night. Somewhere amongst them was the boat that the water taxi driver Guy Wallace said he had taken Ben and Olivia to in the early hours of the morning. The police had to identify that boat. Using photographs taken at the time, they set out to isolate the guilty boat from all the innocent ones. But the big 2-masted ketch Wallace described, and a police artist had drawn, was not in the photographs. The police never found this ketch, and their case would be that it therefore did not exist. The assistant prosecutor put it like this when she opened the case in the High Court.
Despite the wide media coverage that the police were looking for a ketch, no such ketch was found, or no such sighting was given to the police of it.
No such sighting. There were in fact many sightings of such a ketch, and they were given to the police. If the jury ever accepted that no one had reported seeing such a ketch, they would have been wrong.
No one was really saying a hell of a lot on the boat. I was really admiring the boat because it was such a beautiful looking vessel.
Guy Wallace saw and touched the ketch and remembers it clearly.
And you could just see it was well looked after. There's a lot of rope work towards the back of the boat.
Hayden Morrissey was a passenger on the Naiad inflatable, the water taxi, that night. This is only the second time he and Guy Wallace have met. Morrissey too saw and touched the ketch.
As we were approaching the boat, swung around to get ready to secure the Naiad to the yacht.
Morrissey remembers having to reach up, half standing, to grab the bottom of a stanchion on the deck of the ketch, while Ben and Olivia and the mystery man climbed aboard it.
And probably would have been maybe 10 inches higher than what it is, where I had to reach up.
Thick blue stripe down the middle, round portholes with brass surrounds. It was just like, you see something like that, and if it really appeals to you, it stays in your head.
But what stayed in his head was wrong, said the prosecutors. There were no portholes in the hull at all, and the boat wasn't 40 feet long with 2 masts. It was 26 feet long with 1 mast. It was Blade. Both Wallace and Morrissey were mistaken in thinking that the boat they were touching had a blue stripe running right along its side within inches of their eyes.
I swung round.
What they thought were ropes hanging down and over the stern railing was actually a canvas.
Grab one of the railings. But yeah, as you see, there's not much to grab.
Nothing at all like the boat that we dropped Ben and Olivia off. Where's all the rope work? There's no room for the rope work, full stop. It's just tiny. I remember when I saw the police pull it out of the water on television. I was standing at the bar at Ferno Lodge. There was someone standing next to me and I said, "What's this, joke?" That's just how plain and simple it is to me.
You hardly even have to step off the boat to get onto there, would you? It's about level.
But the Crown prosecutor had an answer for this. It wasn't necessarily the side of a ketch that Morrissey had reached up to at all.
In the position where he is likely to again reach out and hold on to the back of the Tamarack.
The boat he had reached up to may well have been the first boat they'd come to that night, the Tamarack, the boat that Ben and Olivia got off. In this scenario, Morrissey would have confused the stern of this boat, perhaps 6 feet wide, with the side of a 40-foot ketch.
And all this business about how his arm was up and how it reached and all the rest of it doesn't apply to the second boat at all.
But I think it does apply to the second boat. Hayden Morrissey told the court that he had touched only one boat that night. He was clear that that boat was not Tamarack. It was a ketch.
Where I had to reach up more, rest my arm.
I remember I just had to get my ass up on the pontoon a wee bit, so I reckon I'd have been just up here.
The prosecutor's scenario had both the men who were there that night separately recalling a large two-masted yacht that he said did not exist. They both thought that they had helped 3 people climb 3 feet up the side of that yacht. But according to the prosecution, the 3 had actually stepped across onto a small yacht that had a deck almost level with the Naiad water taxi, a yacht that would have listed with the weight of the 3. The truth is that neither of the eyewitnesses, Wallace and Morrissey, remembered visiting such a little boat so low to the water at all. 3 people watched Ben and Olivia climb aboard the mystery boat that night. Guy Wallace and his remaining 2 passengers, Hayden Morrissey and a girl, Sarah Dyer. The prosecutor's theory contradicted the evidence of all 3. Dyer had told the court that Morrissey grabbed hold of the second boat, the one Ben and Olivia boarded, and she said the deck of this boat was at chest height above the floor of the Naiad. Wallace and Morrissey both testified that the boat was not Blade and was a large ketch. And yet the jury accepted the theory and rejected the evidence of the 3 people who were there at the time. A book written after the trial, with the help of the police, recalled that Guy Wallace's insistence about the ketch had been a problem to the inquiry.
Wallace was becoming increasingly, maybe infuriatingly, wedded to his description of the ketch he believed he had seen.
After he had given 6 statements in 7 days, Wallace was again interviewed by the police.
Let me give you a scenario that I've got, okay?
Yep.
There's 4 Naiad drivers working, all right? Up to 8 hours each, all right? And in your own words, you told me that this boat is so dominant that it stands out, that anybody could see it.
That's right.
All right?
Yeah.
They've never seen it. They're delivering people all night, Guy.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I'm giving you my description of what I think it's like, and I'm bloody sure that's how it is.
They've never seen it.
Well, I'm not pricking around.
They've never seen this boat.
3 days before this interview, water taxi driver Ted Walsh had told the police he had seen the ketch.
While I was taxiing across the inlet, I noticed that the ketch was anchored outside Ferno Lodge. I passed the ketch a number of times, but can't remember seeing anyone on the ketch moving about. One of beautiful craft. Lots of rope work, big heavy ropes, inch in diameter stuff. Big blue stripe down the side of it, absolutely immaculate shining, with 5 or 7 large round brass portholes really gleaming. It was really well looked after, this vessel.
We've got 4 people doing 100 trips each. On the Naiads, right? Right? 3 areas, left, right, and straight ahead of the jetty. Right? Splitting the area up, that's means they probably did, what, 30 trips each. That's 120 times this vehicle was passed, Guy. No one saw it.
Altogether, 4 water taxi drivers, including Wallace himself, had already told the police that they saw the ketch. Here are 2 more.
I can vaguely remember the double-masted sailing boat. It was anchored on its own. I can recall going around the back of the boat and seeing a lot of gear on the stern.
It would have been 200 to 300 metres offshore, basically straight out from the jetty. It could have been a tad to the left. It had 5 or 6 round portholes with white trim around the edge. I remember that it was white with a blue line.
It could only have been the ketch Guy Wallace went alongside. But Wallace didn't change his view. By the time of the trial, both of these men did. Both would tell the High Court that they'd not seen the ketch at all.
Well, we've identified 100 and over boats.
Yeah?
Practically every single boat in that harbour that night.
Righto.
And spoken to every single person.
Yep. And no one remembers seeing it?
No one bar you has seen this bloody thing.
I do remember seeing the ketch moored about 15 metres slightly to the west of the jetty. The ketch had other boats around it, but because it was different, it sticks in my mind. You could see it out here. It was quite a distinctive looking boat compared to the other boats around.
I cannot remember how many masts it had, but it definitely looked like the sketch of the boat the police had shown me.
It had a wide blue stripe, probably this wide, with big round brass portholes in the stripe. And there was just a lot of rigging and ropes and stuff over the back of it.
A long list of witnesses told the police about seeing a two-masted yacht on the 2 days after Ben and Olivia went missing. This yacht was never identified. The first sighting was at 7:30 on the morning of the 1st of January. The yacht was around about here, travelling away from Ferno. Another sighting later that morning occurred here, on the east side of Long Island. Half an hour later, another witness saw it a little further north, here.
The key features were that I remember that it had rope trailing behind it, out the stern. It would have had to have been reasonably heavy rope to have been able to see it. The day that I made this statement, the police came on, or Mr. Pope, I believe it was that same day, came on TV saying there was no such ketch.
And there was a sighting of a ketch matching the description here, in remote East Bay. Betty Rose says she told the police, but she didn't hear back.
One of the first things I said was it looked like a Chinese junk. That was my reaction. I said, to what it looks, with all the ropes and the shape of it and everything, I said it looks like a Chinese junk.
At 10:30 on the morning of January the 2nd, Ted and Yvonne Walsh, who had a boatload of friends, saw the same ketch they'd seen at Ferno here.
Probably had it in sight for a good 10 minutes as it came towards us and went past us and carried on out past Cape Jackson there. Well, Yvonne had spotted it. She yelled out, "Oh, here's that Chinese junk that was at Ferno last night, or the night before."
Chinese junk that's the impression it gave me, because it was sort of pointed in the front and came down sort of like that at the back. You know, sort of like a banana shape sort of thing. That's what it sort of reminded me of.
But this very blonde young lady sitting on the back in the cockpit, sort of jammed in the port side of the cockpit. Just never turned her head or anything, just looked straight ahead the whole time as they approached, went past, we waved, no one waved back. One chap was moving around the middle of the boat playing with ropes. He sort of bent over, but he never took his eyes off us. Just strange. There was a lot of strangeness about it.
I think there was 10 of us, 10 or 12 of us.
Kevin Rees was on the boat with the Walshes. He has designed boats. While he and his wife Anne spoke to me, Kevin sketched the two-masted yacht they'd seen.
When the policeman first came into Ferno, Kevin and I were in the bar. There were 3 tuna fishermen, and one of the younger policemen that had come in went over and asked the fishermen had they seen or noticed anything unusual.
They said that they also saw that yacht, and they drew a sketch in front of us in the bar on a table like this.
What I saw the fishermen draw was definitely a two-masted ketch. And I know that I saw 2 masts when I was out on the boat.
There never was a mystery ketch. The mystery ketch is a fiction, really. The label given to this description that Mr. Wallace came up with. And the mystery ketch is a term of the media. I suggest to you, there isn't a mystery ketch.
Almost the last words to the jury from the Crown Prosecutor. The thought he left with them. No mystery ketch. And here is the logic he had followed to get to it.
The ketch, the mystery ketch, as consistently described by my learned friends, has to have been where Mr. Wallace dropped off these 3 people to be of any relevance at all. If there are boats like that out in Queen Charlotte Sounds, good. But unless they are in this spot, they are of no relevance in this case.
So it didn't matter how many people had seen the ketch. If they hadn't seen it in the right place, it didn't exist. The right place was here, where Scott Watson's blade was moored. Because this, according to the prosecution,
was the very area where 3 persons, including Olivia Hope and Ben Smart, were dropped onto a yacht by the water taxi driver, Guy Wallace.
If a ketch wasn't found here, then there was no ketch. But was this the place where the 3 were dropped off? The evidence now says no. The Marlborough Mystery was published 2 years after Scott Watson's conviction. Its author is a boatie, Mike Callagher, seen here on the right. Gallagher thought that the prosecution's place for the boat Ben and Olivia boarded was wrong. He reckoned they were blind to compelling evidence about the true position. And in my view, he's right.
You did about half a dozen trips to Pang when you did one that way.
Right.
Gallagher analysed the evidence with the help of a retired psychologist, Barry Kirkwood.
Okay, here we are at Ferno Lodge, and we have the Ferno jetty, and we know the people left from actually this exact corner of the jetty.
They started with the evidence of the other two passengers on the water taxi with Ben and Olivia on New Year's morning.
Now, Sarah's evidence is that she takes about 2 minutes to get out to here.
Hayden Morrissey's friend Sarah had been cold and acutely aware of how long it had taken for each leg of the journey. Morrissey himself had drawn a diagram of the journey.
If we work off Hayden Morrissey's sketch map,
Kirkwood and Gallagher compared Morrissey's distances and angles with Sarah Dyer's times and changes of direction. They matched the point at which these intersected with drawings and diagrams by others who had seen the ketch off Ferno that night. Yvonne Walsh had marked an aerial photograph. So had her husband, Ted.
no, it would be quite a bit further down.
Bruce O'Malley had drawn a diagram. These and the evidence of another witness supplied the same consistent location for both the ketch and for the boat that Ben and Olivia boarded.
Out here, a long way from Blade, all in general agreement, somewhere around about 300 metres out from the Ferno jetty. So there's remarkably good agreement between these witnesses.
You get a little bunch of dots. You don't get a big shotgun blast, eh? You just get a little area with them all in approximately the same place.
This position was exactly where the ketch had originally been placed by one of the water taxi drivers who had changed his mind by the time of the trial.
It would have been 200 to 300 metres offshore, basically straight out from the jetty. It could have been a tad to the left.
This is one of the photographs the police had used as a guide to the boats moored off Ferno Lodge. It was taken on the morning of New Year's Day from the same position as this picture, which shows the same view. Seen from above, the edge of the police photograph would be here. Blade was here. The ketch position was here. There was only one person who ever placed the boat Ben and Olivia boarded near where Blade was moored, Guy Wallace. The test of the new theory is his view of it. In fact, he says he had come to the same conclusion before the trial.
First location I gave for the ketch was back there, and that was incorrect.
And, he says, he told the police at the time.
That where I've got the boat on paper is the wrong place. I've remembered exactly where it was, because it was when I took the fishermen that had been doing all the fighting way out into the bay to where their boats were moored, and on the way back I can clearly see the ketch out to my right-hand side, all by itself. That's where I reckon it was.
Wallace says the police told him not to worry about it. In the end, the evidence he gave in court about the ketch placed it in the position which he now says is incorrect. He didn't testify as to what he recalled to be the true position.
Well, you got a lot of pressure on you.
You have a drink with this guy. No. And you talk about these two people that are asleep.
No, not the case.
These two people that are asleep on his boat while you and him have a drink. Because he's pissed off. Because he hasn't been able to pick up anybody. And you're pissed off too, because you haven't been able to pick up anybody, and it's New Year's Eve.
No, mate.
And here is this, how did you describe her?
Very pretty.
Very attractive young girl, sleeping down below.
I don't know, is she?
Pretty tempting, isn't it?
You say something like that to someone, then they say it doesn't matter. Well, you obviously think it doesn't matter either. Well, now, what, 5 years down the track? It really matters.
The prosecution argument was simple. Watson's boat was moored in position X. The missing pair were dropped off at a boat in position X. Therefore, Watson's boat was the boat the pair were dropped off on, and therefore Watson is the killer. But surely the evidence now demands this. Watson's boat was moored in position X. The missing pair were dropped off at a boat in position Y. Therefore, Watson's boat is not the boat the missing pair were dropped off on, and therefore Watson is not the killer.